So the new Disney film came out over the weekend, and God, what an absolute travesty it's been. Disney have just been in a complete spiral into oblivion over the last sort of 10 years or so. And I've spoken about Disney before on this channel because I actually have shares in Disney, and they have not been performing very, very well at all. So it's always in the back of my mind about how Disney are performing, and how they've just completely destroyed their legacy over the last 10 years. I mean, Disney's been around for over 100 years. They've got some absolutely amazing classic characters that everybody knows, from Lion King, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, the list goes on. And over the last 20, I don't know, actually 15 years, I think they've obviously purchased Marvel and Star Wars as well, and arguably run those into the ground as well. But today we're going to be talking about Snow White and I don't know if it's called the Seven Dwarves actually, but this movie had a $300 million budget, and at its opening weekend I think it grossed 40 million. So it's a massive loss already, and we're going to talk about why Snow White has been a massive failure, and what that will actually mean for the future as well. Now I think Disney's goal over the last 10 years really has to have been to try and revive the IP of Disney. So all of those old cartoons from the 40s and the 50s, your Jungle Books, your Snow Whites, I don't think Lion King was the 90s, wasn't it? But all of those old ones, the Jungle Book, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, all of those are starting to reach their out of date date, basically. And I think Disney's job is to try and revive those so that they can recapture the IP, and ultimately it doesn't get stolen once their statute of limitations runs out on it. I think it's 100 years. So in the next 20 years, we've got a bunch of Disney cartoons and their characters that are going to sort of be thrusted into the public domain. We've seen that recently with Popeye, with Winnie the Pooh, and what was the other one that they did the horror film for? Anyway, Winnie the Pooh. We'll say it's Winnie the Pooh, and it's shown. The good thing about Winnie the Pooh going onto the public domain is that some people have made. There was a horror film for the Winnie the Pooh film thing, right? Where it was like, was it called Blood and Honey or something like that? So that was actually a really popular film. A lot of people watched it. A lot of people really enjoyed it. They brought out another sort of scary film as well. I can't remember if it was Popeye actually. Can't remember which one it was. But those videos, those films show that people don't need the storyline of Winnie the Pooh to be exactly the same. It doesn't need to be lost in a forest of Christopher Robin and all that sort of stuff, right? It can be completely different. As long as it's based on Winnie the Pooh, people will still watch it as long as it is a good film. The problem with Snow White is that Disney have completely tried to capture the wrong audiences over the last 10, 15 years. Instead of trying to capture the audience that Snow White already has, it's having the issue of it's trying to create a new identity and therefore create a new audience as well. And this has been one of the main problems that Disney have had over the last 10 years. I actually can't remember the last viral film that Disney actually put out. I'd actually say it's probably Frozen. And how long ago was Frozen? I think a lot of the young girls that were watching Frozen back then are probably in their teens now, probably nearly 18. So it's been a long time since Disney have actually put something good out. Now with Disney, they hired I think her name was Rachel Zegler, right? And she has been a real massive problem for the show, for the film, all the way in the run up to its release. Now, if you don't know, Snow White was supposed to have come out a couple of years ago when Rachel Zegler was doing her press tour and all that sort of stuff. But it was mired in political controversy, and the first one was about Rachel Zegler, her constant tirade against man don't need no woman. And this Snow White's not going to be about being protected by being rescued by a prince. This one's going to be about how she is strong and independent, and she's going to take over take over the castle, or the place that the Wicked Witch lives in, basically. And this is very, very at odds with the audience that Disney already has. I mean, Disney princesses is a thing. Disney princesses is a brand. So, and they've built that brand over the past 100 years. Girls wanting to be like Cinderella. They want to be like Ariel. They want to be like Snow White. They dress up as them at parties. So why have Disney decided that it's best for them to create a film based on a beautiful princess trying to find her prince, and completely turn it on its head and make her into some sort of just ideologically captured, just narcissist, really? That's the only thing that I can really put on it. The other issue that Disney had was when Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones was coming out and saying that he didn't think it was right that Hollywood should still be hiring, and I don't know what the correct political term of this is. It keeps changing all the time. Dwarves, little people, small people. But Peter Dinklage said that Hollywood should not be hiring these people to play dwarven roles. So Disney had to go back, even though they'd filmed all of this, they had to go back and basically CGI the dwarves into the movie. And there was a big backlash against Peter Dinklage about how he has made a career out of being a little person / dwarf, or whatever they want to be called these days, and now he's saying that this shouldn't be done. And we've kind of hit critical mass, I think, on some of this. The only thing you can call it is woke ideology, right? And the people will try and gaslight you and tell you that, this isn't happening. What are you talking about? But we can all see it with our own eyes, guys. We can see that Snow White is just an atrocious movie with an atrocious actress in it who nobody seems to like, and it's not because people think she's ugly or anything like that. It's because people think she's just an absolutely horrible, obnoxious person. Now, another mistake that Disney made with this film is that Rachel Zegler is she's an attractive girl, but they have done everything they can in this movie to make her look the least attractive that they possibly can. I mean, she kind of looks a little bit like a live-action Lord Farquaad from Shrek, right? And they just completely went in the wrong direction. I mean, if you look at the CGI for this movie, it's very grey, very just dull. The CGI looks poor. The dwarves look terrible. And it's no surprise that this film hasn't done very well, right? But where does Disney go from here? I think Disney really does need to turn the ship now, because they've had 10 years of really, really bad movies and really bad franchise errors and made really bad decisions within those franchises. And ultimately, they've been chasing the wrong audience. They've been trying to create a new audience. And I don't know why they're trying to do that. Why are you trying to create a new audience? For something to last for the next generation of kids, you have to create a new generation of media every 20 years. And that's what Disney presumably have been trying to do over the last 10 years with Star Wars, with the new phase of Marvel, or the newer phase of Marvel since the Endgame, and with their Disney cartoons as well. Why is it that they feel that they have to change the story, the message behind it? Because what these people don't seem to realise is that the vast majority of the population doesn't agree with these kind of ideological mantras that these directors, that these writers are trying to instill into their stories. If the writer of Snow White needed to make a story about a strong, independent woman, why didn't she just do that? Why did she choose Snow White to create that story? It doesn't make any sense. And we've seen this throughout the years on very, very many pieces of media. It happens on TV shows, it happens in movies, it happens in video games as well. I mean, we'll touch again on Ubisoft and the failure of Assassin's Creed. Complete failure, because again, they decided to chase I don't know why, but ultimately, if you're facing a game in Japan about samurais, it's probably a good idea to have the main character be Japanese, especially in a country like Japan, where these people are very, very proud of their culture. They really do not like it being disrespected. Yet Ubisoft have gone over there and put loads of Chinese, artworks and statues and all that sort of stuff into their into their game, when it's clearly disrespectful to put Chinese stuff in a Japanese game, right, and mark it off as Japanese. And this is the issue that the media seems to have across the board. And, I'm not entirely sure what the reason for this is. Why would Disney spend 300 million? By the way, 300 million, I think, was the budget, but they've probably overspent on that since they had to redo the dwarves, make them CGI, and redo all the film and all that sort of stuff. But why is Disney so hell-bent on just losing money? That's the only way I can put it. Why are they so hell-bent on losing money? If you're going to make if you want to chase an ideological, piece of media and, make a princess strong and independent and all that sort of stuff, maybe create a new character. It's really, really not a good idea to alienate your audience to try and create something new. Maybe create a different spin-off. I mean, when was the last time Disney created something really, really new and really, really impactful? And I think it really was Frozen. I don't think there's been anything since then. But I don't know, what more can you even say to these companies? I think we're going to, over the next 5 years, especially now that we've got the Trump presidency back, it already does seem to be a massive paradigm shift into the sorts of things that you're starting to see in media. I think a lot of these companies now are starting to turn their backs on, woke ideology, trying to, appease everybody. And I think ultimately what they're going to hopefully try and do now is just create a good story. We've had 10 years of this absolute drivel, this absolute slop of boring media, where the most interesting thing about the movie is the person's race, creed, colour, sexuality, or something completely irrelevant that no one cares about. And it's not that people dislike any of these categories. It's just that we don't care. We don't want this to be the most interesting thing about you. You see a lot of these people on, Twitter, and this is the thing, right? Twitter is a very, very small minority of people, but they're very, very, very loud. And those small, loud minority of people have been able to hijack these companies over the last 10 years and basically dictate to them what they want them to produce. These people have also infiltrated these companies as well, and then those have hired more people that have the same thoughts as them or the same views as them. But these companies have to take a stance on it now. They have to go back on it. They have to start producing decent media. I mean, you look at Halo, a great TV series. Well, it should have been a great TV series, completely trashed by a writer that had an ideological. They wanted to put their own ideology into their own worldview into the media that they're creating. There's been so many of these that have happened over the last 10 years that I actually really worry about the next 20 years and what we're actually even going to be seeing as IPs. It doesn't even really seem like we're actually creating any new IPs at the moment. We are still kind of living off of the 90s, the 80s, Ninja Turtles, Pokémon, Power Rangers, all of that sort of stuff. Those are the IPs that are still driving the media, the collectible, the nerd economy. There isn't anything new being created, which is very, very strange. Throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, the early 2000s, you was always getting new brands that are still around today. Beyblade, Digimon, I've mentioned all the others before as well. Why isn't anybody able to create anything new? Is it because everybody's been so ideologically captured that their main focus has been to create more, diversity in media or diversity in films instead of actually creating a decent film that people just want to watch? And that's the moral of the story today. I think it's really interesting to see kind of what happens with these IPs over the next 20 years, because like I said, it is Disney's job to create media now so that kids in 20 years, the kids of today will grow up in 20 years and want to show their kids what the new Cinderella is like, what the new Snow White is like, what the new Lion King is like. That is their job, and they seem to have failed to do that. If they've not created a meaningful form of media now, then people aren't going to be interested in it in 20 years' time. And that is what the main goal of these huge multi-billion-dollar corporations, that is what their goal should be, is to preserve their characters, preserve their legacy. And I think Disney have done a really, really bad job of preserving their legacy over the last 10 years and for the next 20 years as well. It's a real shame. Like I say, I've got shares in Disney. It is what it is. Nobody's signing up to their subscription model either. And, you know, in a time where people basically have to choose, everything's a subscription now, whether it's Amazon, Disney, Netflix, Hulu, HBO, whatever any of these other ones are, people have to choose. They haven't got £100 a month to spend on 10 different services that they only watch one show on. And ultimately, Disney's main draw is Marvel, Marvel, Star Wars, and yeah, the Disney cartoons. And you know, in the words of Rachel Zegler, the Disney cartoons are old, they're outdated, and they do need to be remade, but definitely not in this way. Absolutely terrible, terrible decision. Disney deserve to lose the money on this, and hopefully this will be the last time that they try to impose their world, or impose a writer's worldview onto everybody else. But thanks for watching. Leave us a like, subscribe if you're new here, check out the site, don't be tight, and we'll see you on the next one.